mad scientist building a DeLorean time machine, to
a group of aliens and humans trying to make the first interstellar version of the United Nations.
yes, and to a far-off, forbidden planet. You're watching Drive-In Cinema Showcase here on MCAT Channel 7 on MCAT.org. Welcome to Drive-In Cinema Showcase. We're also featured on MCAT.org, live streaming. Today we're going to be talking about Back to the Future, and I'll be showing clips from the trilogy Back to the Future 2, because that's my favorite movie. And we'll be having a debate with a local city, town, television celebrity right here on the show. And him and I are going to be debating about whether Back to the Future is a good movie or not so good movie. And we'll either agree or agree to disagree. And that'll be coming up later in the show. Also, we'll have a guest on, Joel Baird, and he'll be talking and sharing with us with Forbidden Planet. We'll be talking about that and also the history of the drive-in cinema, and also the history, probably talk about a little bit of the CinemaScope as well. And then brings me to my co-host, Greg Birch, also published author, I almost said Arthur, author, and we're going to be talking about Babylon 5. And lots of people told me, like my friends, they told me to give it a try. Well, one friend told me, you got to give Babylon 5 a try. And I watched it when it was on, like during the time, in I think it was 90s, late 90s, right?
I believe about 95, 96, 97, in that general area.
Okay, and I watched it, and it was like, to me, it was like I didn't get into it like I did Star Trek Next Generation. I mean, I'm not total like Star Trek Next Generation, but I'll watch it and stuff, but it wasn't as, to me, exciting. I don't know why it wasn't. Maybe I just wanted, at the time when I was that age, I just wanted explosions and stuff, which this does have. It has cool battle scenes. So why do you think, right now, like, is there a big fan base for Babylon 5, or is that just there's not a huge fan base? Is it big at Comic-Con? Do you know? What do you know about this Babylon 5? Or why do you like it, if you don't know the answers to that? I mean,
From my impression of it, there's still a sizable fan base. Probably not what it should be, considering the fact that it's been off the air for a little over a decade,
wow.
and the fact that the spin-off Crusade didn't really take on like they'd hoped. But to me, the biggest reason I chose Babylon 5 was that I think, in terms of serial programming, that it's one of the most impressive and successful attempts at treating aliens as an actual viable culture, and this was many different aliens throughout the course of the show.
Right.
Most particularly like the Vorlons and the Minbari, as well as the Centauri. The Centauri are kind of sort of the Babylon 5 equivalent of the British Empire, with the
so yeah, British Empire
being kind of sort of like the, I would say maybe the early Arabic culture, where they're much more into learning, much more into philosophy, things like that. And then them and, well, I already said the Minbari.
But in talking about this, like it has a lot of. It is kind of like how. I'm sorry to compare it to Star Trek. I don't know if that's a bad thing to do with this, but like they have a lot of different cultures, societies, alien races, and stuff like that. It sounds like that's what they have levels of. I remember seeing the show, the makeup effects. There's one guy with the big hair thing. I don't know, the bald head and the big hair.
Probably Lionel Londo Mallory.
Yeah, yeah. I remember seeing that guy. That guy stood out. I'm like, whoa. It's kind of like a Klingon, but not Klingon. And it's more like I think he was like, wasn't he a political figure in the little society or
He
something?
eventually became something like a prime minister. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, and so it talks about that, and it is like what I noticed too when I watched this show as a kid was it was like all that they're all like this, like a little soap opera, but you have aliens and you have spaceship battles and some cool scenes. But also what was kind of curious too, I don't know if I'm correct on this, but think before the Voyager episodes on Star Trek, there was ladies that were leaders or captains basically on ships, right? Am I saying that?
Indeed.
Yeah. And actually, I don't want to give too much away, but in an upcoming clip, you're going to show a pretty sweet scene about that. So,
Actually, the person in particular in that scene is considered to be one of the best characters in the show, just because she's such a strong, dynamic character, and they built her up pretty well. And that's another thing about Babylon 5 in terms of why I prefer it. I have historically not that been into Star Trek just because there's so many spin-offs that, sorry for the pun, that it kind of makes my head spin. Whereas Babylon 5 is basically just its own little insular universe. You've got the 5 seasons, and that's that. Whereas Trek has something like 50, 60 years of
Oh my
continuity to
goodness,
sift
yeah.
through, and it's just mind-blowing. And that is the one thing about Babylon 5 is that the show's creator has stayed pretty integral in terms of developing the post-show spin-offs and so forth, so that there's not a whole lot of concept drift and not a whole lot of concept oversaturation and things like that. So I guess that's another thing I prefer about it is the fact that J. Michael Straczynski has been pretty hands-on in terms of trying to make the post-show continuity fairly linear and still important and integral to what the show mythology was. Which actually, one of the things about it is that for years on end they were talking about making a movie, but certain portions of the cast have actually died. And he's famous for having a quote of something along the lines of, and I won't say the actors or the character names just in case people haven't seen it, so I don't give this away, but with these certain people that have died, the only way that he would be willing to do a spin-off movie, like a sequel movie, is if science were to find a way to bring them back to life, which pretty much means that it's not going to happen. But
I killed off all my best characters, it sounds like. Why do I want to do this? Oh, okay. That's interesting.
well, the actual actors died, not the characters. But
Oh, okay. Now I am now playing the idiot here, or the naive guy. So who passed away?
the actor who played Jakar,
Oh, okay.
and the actor, actually, this one just happened pretty recently. Zach Ellen, who was the security chief, just passed away this last summer. And then the doctor on the ship also passed away.
So he lost all his good actor, his cast, basically. Okay, and he's not. He would rather do the movie with those guys.
Well,
That's super.
mostly, two of them were kind of bit players, but he's that finicky about it that he'd rather have the whole cast.
Well, he cares about his character actors and stuff like that. That's cool. And this when I was watching it, I remember just being like, I try to watch it, but I guess you do have to. I think it could have been my age then, and now, because I noticed they came out with they have you have this DVD set that you can buy now, and I noticed a lot of things. Do you think, because a lot of things after time goes by, after they've been gone, they build up that new fan base? Do you think this has built up fan base like that, or is it still just the same fans that are just hanging on to it?
Oh, I think a certain portion of it is a new fan base. I believe that some of the actors still attend conventions and so forth, to get back to one of your earlier questions. So there's still a connection between the fan base and the actual actors. No one that I know of from the show has really gone on to any kind of significant success in terms of acting post-show, which kind of seems to happen with these these not necessarily small, but these intensely focused genre pieces where a certain person who fits a certain role seems to be considered to be able to do that one role, and that's it.
Right.
Which may or may not be the case, but that it's kind of like Star Wars in that way, where a lot of those same people never really recovered after that.
Right. Except for Harrison Ford.
Yeah, that was the one I thought of.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough.
But let's not talk about that. No, I'm just kidding. But like Babylon 5, like it, well, so it is picking up. They didn't they make a new, like, not a spin-off, but like the Next Generation or something, kind of like that, like what they did with Star Trek? Did they do something like that where they try to bring it back with different characters, like a prequel? I don't understand. So I noticed when, in my researching it, so I wasn't completely, but I missed the whole part about the cast passing away. Jeez. Shows how good I do homework. But I came across something that looked like if there, somebody was attempt to doing the show. I don't know if it's on right now or if that was like early millennium or what was going on.
I believe it was in the early 2000 era, and I think it only lasted about a year. It was called Crusade,
Right.
and really it just, for whatever reason, it just didn't seem to resonate with the audience. From what I've heard, the acting didn't match the writing, or the writing didn't match the acting. I don't remember which exactly, but basically it kind of died a quick, merciful death, from my understanding. I haven't seen it just because I tend to like to watch quality things as opposed to things that are not quality.
Right.
But it is something that I want to get around to watching, just for for my own research purposes. In terms of whether it was a prequel or a spin-off or anything like that, I'm not really quite sure.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either. I was like, I looked at it, I was like, oh, at first I was like, oh, this is probably, oh no, that's not it, that's new. So speaking about that, I guess you want to show your clip. It's a pretty cool scene. Talking about how, going back to what you were talking about, how these really strong characters, and this was one of the strongest characters, more fierce character, and it's really shown in this clip we're going to see. Do you want to throw to the clip, or set up the clip if you want to?
I'll set up the clip. Essentially what's happening in this clip is that the command force of Babylon 5 has decided that certain actions on Earth are essentially unconstitutional and have seceded from Earth and are kind of operating under their own jurisdiction. And one of their commanders, Susan Ivanova, who is from Russia and is also a kind of sort of lapsed but still practicing Jew throughout the course of the series, and she kind of gets back into her religion after her father passes away. She encounters a member of Earth Force who is not necessarily so pleased to see her, and this scene illustrates what happens between them. And I think that's as good a seg as any way to cut to the scene. So here we go.
We're at the rendezvous point. Are we picking up any transmissions?
Negative. Shall we go in?
Anything on the scanners?
Nothing. Maybe the information was wrong.
No, we're not that lucky. Check the...
Wait a minute. Getting something.
Is that what I think it is?
Confirmed. Scanners indicate that the destroyers are using a semi-organic hull design.
Shadow technology.
Exactly.
God, we knew they got their hands on a shadow vessel, but who would have thought they could have adapted the technology this quickly?
This is Captain Jake Thompson of the Advanced Destroyer Group, Tanami Vessels. We have you surrounded. You are ordered to surrender your vessels or be destroyed. I say again, surrender or be destroyed.
Put me on with him. And give me firing control. This is the White Star Fleet. Negative on surrender. We will not stand down.
Who is this? Identify yourself.
Who am I? I am Susan Ivanova, commander, daughter of Andrei and Sophie Ivanov. I am the right hand of vengeance, and the boot that is gonna kick your sorry ass all the way back to Earth, sweetheart. I am death incarnate, and the last living thing that you are ever going to see. God sent me.
Hi, welcome back. That was Babylon 5 from, I guess, the series in the late 1990s, right?
Right.
Cool. And boy, as I was saying, I was like, I love seeing the starship battles. That's my favorite part. I don't remember seeing those battles. I always turned to the channel. I think was it on Sci-Fi? What was it on back in the
I'm not
day?
certain that Sci-Fi existed at
Yeah,
that this was on. From what I remember hearing, I never actually saw it on the original broadcast. I saw it all on DVD.
Oh, okay.
And I'm a binge television watcher. When I start watching television, I go through entire seasons at a time. But anyway,
You binge television person.
the network that I believe I've heard that it was on was TNT, and allegedly people had significant issues with watching it because they kept messing around with the time schedule and all that,
Right.
thing that networks like to do. So evidently, like many people, allegedly it's been hard to get into on the original broadcast because the time schedule screwed with people. But in terms of, one last comment on this, in terms of my interest in it, basically J. Michael Straczynski treated this kind of like a television version of a novel, where the first season is basically the first chapter, maybe the first act of the novel. And historically, if anyone out there like me is writing a novel or has written a novel, generally your first act tends to be pretty rough, and it tends to be kind of rough going. So the first season really is just basically set up and just kind of throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. Although, according to things I've heard, he actually had the show planned out before he ever started writing it. But seasons 2, 3, and 4, the quality improves significantly.
Right.
And which is actually, that clip that was shown was actually from season 4. And the thing about season 4 is that they didn't know that they were going to be able to come back. The original plan was 5 seasons, but they didn't. The network was talking about possibly canceling them, so they pretty much kind of combined 2 seasons into one. And so the running joke with season 5 is, if you're a completist, you can watch it. If not, you don't really miss a whole lot. So keep that in mind.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know for our viewers out there and other Babylonian watchers out there. And we're planning to do this show again, speaking about getting better as you go in season. So we're going to try to polish this up and have and talk about, I'm just getting on a tangent on this, and talk about more movies, like the movies out there in Hollywood and stuff like that. And also, you'll be talking about later, inviting local filmmakers and other just independent filmmakers that make movies, short films, whatever, and invite them to play it on this show on Drive-In Cinema. And Drive-In Cinema Showcase, because there's 2 shows. This is Drive-In Cinema Showcase, and I have Drive-In Cinema, but basically it's the same thing, just showcase. We were doing this. You actually see people, we can talk, and we're also planning to do a live show where we can call in and talk to other fans, and they can give their input and other ideas and probably help us out when we're like, we don't know what channel that was on. They could be like, I know, Google it for us and tell us. So I was saying that just to remind you guys, you're watching Drive-In Cinema Showcase, and it's on MCAT Channel 7, MCAT.org. If you're watching us right now, that's the channel. We're on Channel 7, Bresnan Cable. We're not on satellite or dish. We're just on the Bresnan channel, Channel 7. If you don't get us, but you have internet, you can watch us on MCAT.org on Channel 7 live streaming. Tell your friends and family. That was a commercial. Oops. So anyways, we're going to be talking to, again, I'm going to be later on having a debate with a local celebrity about Back to the Future, whether it is a good movie or not so good movie. We're going to be debating our cases. But in the meantime, when we come back after this, we're going to be talking with Joel Baird, the television manager and also a filmmaker, and he's going to be sharing with us Forbidden Planet. And so we'll be right back after this.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves ourselves a treat.
All right, well, welcome back. Those were old drive-in trailers that they used to play back in the day, just before or between your movies or your double features. And I just love those old commercials. It actually made me want to have some popcorn. But that's too bad. At least we have coffee and stuff like that. Well, right now, we have a guest right now. Here he is. Oh my gosh, it's Joel Baird. Yes,
Hello, people.
television manager, also filmmaker, accomplished short
Yeah, pretty
filmmaker.
accomplished short
Yeah.
maker of films, and of course a movie theater aficionado too, because I worked in a movie theater for 15 years.
I worked for a year.
Yeah, well, I mean, we both did time, and then in seeing those clips, you know, of all the food and everything, I have to be reminded of how disgusting some of it is.
Oh, I remember we were
You know?
talking about that.
It is kind of weird. Like, there's definitely been a movement in the movie theater industry, I think, away from some of its industrial roots. But in my day, not to mention names, but when I worked at the Crystal Theater here in town,
Oh, yes, yes.
in '87, now Jace Loxo, not to mention another name, he changed what had been the regimen back then, which was to cook the popcorn in what was called palm oil. And I always imagined
Right,
like
yeah.
a sweaty palm of someone, you know, that oozed a kind of
I,
oil.
I think I
And
still
that
have a
might
scar from burning my stuff.
Well, it came in a huge tub,
Yeah.
and it, you know, I'm sure it wasn't that bad, but you had to ladle it out, and I guess it was really bad for you. It was like a heart-stopping.
Yeah,
chemical
now I'm
in
remembering.
there.
I'm remembering the smell now too. Yeah.
But a lot of those confectionaries are miracles of the industrial age.
Right.
When you think about
Yes.
it, you know, Milk Duds.
Oh,
I mean, what was
gosh.
that? Was that milk that didn't work out?
Milk
It was
found
a-
on
like a
smashed on a
dud?
seat.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
didn't work.
dud. Yeah.
But I know we're going to talk about other stuff.
Curdled.
It just put me in mind of that, and I know one of my topics to talk about was what little I know. I was a film history student at
Mm-hmm.
one time.
Was Greg ever in the theater? Did you ever?
Yeah, did you ever?
Sorry, I just had
Take
it. I
that.
just wanted. We're talking about theater, and it was. Don't want to leave
I
him out.
have attended theaters. That's essentially the end of my involvement.
Oh yeah. Have you ever cleaned a theater?
Nothing like that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because we were talking
Oh,
a couple of
man.
days ago about the intimacy involved.
I don't know if we can talk about
No,
that
I don't
stuff
think we
on
should.
the show. Yeah. It's pretty
So,
bad.
Oh, yeah,
we're,
sure.
you know, we're talking about like the notion of the theater.
Yes.
And then, of course, there's, and I think this is very much related to the whole notion and creation of drive-in cinema.
Right.
Theater and amphitheater.
Right.
How many times do you want to go to the amphitheater?
How many?
You know. And then the early Greek times, which is interesting, like the Greek amphitheater was very much like the Carmike 10 is now.
Right. Yeah.
Isn't that
That
trippy? Like,
stadium seating.
A long way around to come to the same point, but stadium seating. You don't have to have those weedy heads in front of you and everything.
Good thing we
But-
don't live back in the 60s.
Yeah, and I
with
think
BI
that's really
30s.
sweet, though. I mean, maybe it's a move, you know, towards people being on their own more. Because at one time, they'd say, like, here's the Wilma Theater in Missoula, Montana that holds 1,200 people.
Wow.
And at the height of Hollywood, it was maybe pumping out a movie a week. So everybody went within 7 days to the same movie theater. And they all saw the same picture and talked about
Right.
it. And then a new picture was opening Friday. Now we have a 10-plex, a 6-plex, a triplex. The movies are there for 6 weeks, 8 weeks at a time.
And we have the new one, the big one,
Yeah, that's going to be quite something. I think that's going to be pulling
the
people together.
IMAX. Yeah.
So we were going to talk about a little, and here's a prop, thank goodness. We don't have a camera person to look in our prop. Okay, but that's close enough. So we were talking a little earlier about aspect ratio, and what that means, is the ratio of the height to the width. And then, Thea, if you could show the big TV behind
Just a
me.
wide shot, yeah.
Yeah, look
so
at
the
that in the wide
wide-
shot. So this was called 4-3. You know, it's kind
Yeah.
of like it. That it is 4 across and 3 high, and this is called 16:9.
Right.
16 across and 9 high.
Or now they call it HD if you don't know what you're talking about. They
Yeah.
just go, they don't want to explain
It's
it. It's
that
like HD.
HD.
Yeah.
And so this was one of the driving forces of drive-in cinema.
Right.
Was the invention of the television.
Nice play.
Yeah. So the television came out and it aped what most movies had looked like, which was about 4:3.
Casablanca,
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
a
just
lot
trying
of
to
times, I
think
don't know
of
how they
4
came
to
up
3
with
ratio,
that.
yeah.
I mean, we talked about it.
Back to the Future was shot in 4 to 3.
yeah,
Robert
yeah.
Zemeckis chose to shoot it, and now you can watch it in wide. They
Yeah.
kind of fix it or whatever. So.
In the movie theater days, you know, we had lenses, and we'd say, okay, this picture is 133, 166, anamorphic, which is 1235.
Right, right.
Lord knows what
Oh,
it all
my
means.
goodness.
Except the picture, you know, if television was square and it was very small and it was in a tube and it was only black and white.
Right.
But Hollywood was terrified by it anyway. It was like, what are we going to do? You know, they're going to make millions of these sets, they called it. Sets. And they'd put them in people's houses, and the people would stay there all the time.
Right.
They gave them all the entertainment they needed. And there was another dynamic going on right around the same time, post-World War II America. And what was
Yeah.
going on then, where people were making a lot of babies.
Yes.
The baby boomers, as they were known, went from 1946 and kind of petered, as it were, out in 64, 65.
Yes.
So at that time, in the post-war boom, people had
Yes.
money, they had the shock of an international episode of horror, and they were making a lot of babies, and there was a housing shortage and what have you. So one of the main problems with people going to the movies, the demographic had changed. There were a lot of young people, but they had kids that were 6 months old, 9 months old,
Right.
2 years old. You can't take them to the movie theater.
No, I know. I just had a baby, and it'd be nice to have the drive-in theater
Yeah.
around Missoula again, because then go to the
You'd all
movies.
go. Like, you don't want to take an infant in arms.
I could watching
into a
the
movie
new
theater.
movie, The Thing, and I could be changing a poopy diaper, and nobody will care.
Right.
Danielle can. Never mind. Okay.
So one of the Hollywood responses to the invention of television was to widen the image.
CinemaScope.
They say the CinemaScope. And another example of that was Panavision, VistaVision. But they all boil down to the same thing, is how can we, the movie industry, make that TV seem insignificant? Just something, leave it at home and go out
Right.
for something real,
Right.
people. And they had all these movie palaces that were built. They didn't know what to do with them. So one solution, one bright idea was the drive-in cinema. So people could experience a wide screen at the cinema and a massive screen at the drive-in movie
and
theater.
didn't have to get a babysitter.
They didn't have to get a babysitter. Bring everybody.
Yeah.
Bring grandma and grandpa.
Grandma, yeah, she could
Bring the
fall
little
asleep.
ones, but the in-between ones. And another theme that we had talked about earlier too was this integration of the automobile into American culture. I mean, the darn thing was only invented like 30 years before.
Right, right.
That would be like, oh, somebody invented a car in 1982, like Pat Benatar invented the car, you know. So the car was becoming a very integral part of
Yeah.
American culture, and people were doing all kinds of things with the car. They were the drive-in this and the drive-in that, the bank teller, big example. Dry cleaning, another example. The pharmacy, and just the beginning of that food thing.
Right.
Driving in the Sonic to get the
yeah.
food, and those
Sonic
gals would come
Hoagieville
out.
is still around to this day.
With the roller skates and what have you.
It's like Mel's Drive-In.
It was a logical extension. Why not drive into entertainment?
Right.
And the other thing that seemed interesting about that period of time was that the automobile becoming a second home for many people was also the home of courtship, the love couch, the love seat, Greg. It was suddenly portable as wheels were put on the
There's
love
time to
seats.
go park and watch a really
Yeah.
B movie that you don't care
Right.
about, but you're
And-
there to go, oh, that's scary, huh? yeah.
And the drive-in cinema provided that.
Uh-huh.
You know, it was kind of like, you know, the other excesses of cinema at that time were things like Sense-Around, which I remember my little brother and sister were ushers in my hometown
Oh, really?
movie theater. And they showed like Lorne Greene in the first Battlestar Galactica, and they had woofers attached to the girders, you know, of the theater.
Oh, yeah.
So that the entire structure, they try to get the entire building to shake
Oh,
while
it's
they're
like
watching.
Space Taxi now.
Yeah. And then the height of that, and some called it folly, I guess, was smell-o-vision.
Oh, right.
Yeah. There was some
You did that.
movie with Peter Lorre
Yeah.
in which they'd release into the theater the smells and maybe sometimes stenches of the Far East, so people would have that. And of course, John Waters made a landmark film in the 80s, polyester, in which there was
Right.
scratch and sniff. So a number would appear on the screen, and then the corresponding number. They had things like farts and roses and pizza for the pizza delivery scene. And that, in a summer's night, could be overwhelming.
Robert Rodriguez is bringing that back in his next 3D movie.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it'll be 4D.
And I mean, the theme really of this movie experience was get your little something that you can't get at home.
Exactly.
There are reasons for leaving the house.
So go see CinemaScope, so you're not sitting at the little boob tube.
Yeah, or
and-
VistaVision.
Yeah, and so speaking of CinemaScope, maybe we should show a clip really quick.
Yeah,
of,
no, I
do
brought
you
a
wanna
movie. I
yeah.
will try to set up this.
Yeah.
I brought a clip, like which this movie would be considered kind of a B movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Forbidden Planet, and I think it was released in 57, 58, somewhere around there. It stars Leslie Nielsen. We talked about
Yeah.
people know him as a comic genius of Airplane and Police Academy.
Naked Gun.
Naked Guns. But in this movie, he's very, very serious. And then we'll see in the movie Walter Pidgeon, who
Awesome.
plays Morpheus. Who is
Yeah.
a little bit of a thing, for those Keanu Reeves
Exactly,
movies.
yeah.
Matrix.
Yep.
Morpheus.
Morpheus, yeah.
So in this clip, we just set up the clip, the spacemen come to a lonely planet, forbidden, some would say,
Forbidden.
but they just barely, they get around, and it just took them a long time to get there.
Uh-huh.
So they come to this planet, and they find 2 inhabitants. Everybody else died in this most hideous manner. And Leslie Nielsen and his crew are trying to figure out what really happened in this place. And in the first clip, there is a sense of a higher intelligence that got wiped out on the planet.
Right.
So the doc in this clip, he is undergoing like a super sped up mind expansion thing that doesn't go so well for him. But he learns tremendous insights as to what's really going on the planet. He kind of throws the ball to Leslie Nielsen, and he trots out some basic Freudian principles about the unconscious and how our unconscious impulses could lead us to do things we never intended to do. So here's a clip, Forbidden Planet, Leslie Nielsen and Walter Pidgeon.
Doc, will you talk some sense to this girl? I'm in over my head. Doc? Doc? Doc?
On the sofa, Robbie.
So you took the brain boost, huh? You ought to see my new mind. Up there in lights. Bigger than his now. Come on, easy, Doc. Morbius was too close to the problem. The Krell had completed their project. Big machine. No instrumentalities. True creation. Come on, Doc. Let's have it. But the Krell forgot one thing. Yes, what? Monsters, John. Monsters from the id. The id? What's that? Doc. 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 Doc.
How romantic. The fool, the meddling idiot, as though his ape's brain could contain this.
So we came back from the clip of Forbidden Planet, and now we're going to be talking about another cast member, or a prop, I guess, but a cast member of the show.
That's true. And we got to go because I know that you want to, do the next segment.
Debate.
And have that debate.
Yes.
What I wanted to point about this movie, in the main was what's fascinating about Forbidden Planet is like the combination of what might be an unpopular idea in the sci-fi mode is that people have an unconscious which causes them to do things that they would not ordinarily do.
Right.
So it won't be a big plot spoiler, but in a way it is, that you learn that the secret of the Krell in this movie was that they created machines that would fulfill their every wish. But they didn't take into account that one of their wishes was to kill everyone around them because they just got angry.
Yeah.
As Morpheus is getting angry, as his daughter is growing up, falling in love with Leslie Nielsen and wanting to take off the planet. So in the next scene, you see where Morpheus, despite his intention of trying to control his rage, is actually calling up this beast to kill his own daughter and the daughter's boyfriend, Leslie Nielsen.
Right.
But we don't see what happens. You got to watch the movie Forbidden Planet.
Right.
But we did also want to talk about, again, and it's this, to me, a fascinating intersection of humanity and technology.
Right.
That in this movie, Robbie the Robot was the most convincing heretofore robotic, android, artificial intelligence type dude that people had ever seen. And it became the basis for many robots after him. Of course, including the Lost in Space robot, who I think they affectionately called Robot.
Yes,
But,
yes. Danger.
Right, and the thing that both Christian and I had gotten from watching the extras in this movie, was it that? No,
Yeah.
we were going to talk about the theremin and the music track not really being melodic.
Right, right,
But the
yeah.
other thing I know it's on the extras track was talking about the designer for the film.
Oh, we did talk about
who
that,
was
yeah.
an industrial designer. The guy
Right.
had gone to school, to make blenders and toasters and washing machines. So that the foundation of Robbie the Robot, this fantastic icon for all the achievement of mankind in the last 2,000 years in the Android department, was the washing machine.
He was walking around washing machine.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. And I always like to think that he has like the gumball dispenser for the head.
It does, or a jukebox or whatever. you
Yeah,
wanna call it.
jukebox, that's a great idea.
That's what I saw.
Because he kind of lights up the way a
Yeah.
jukebox does when you talk.
And I love that like clear dome, or not dome, but whatever that is, like fishbowl kind of thing.
Yeah.
You look in, there's all the moving parts and the things moving.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
So anyway, I'm going to go back to business here at MCAT, but I really delight
Yeah,
in
thank you
being
for
on the
coming.
show. And I promise if you do it again to come back with footage of the Go West Drive-In.
Yes, we will
and
do
Eddie
that.
Sharp, Lord love his soul.
Let's do that.
And so the next little clip that I'll go out on, before the debate rages here, is the second half of discovering what is behind all the mayhem on the Forbidden
great.
Planet.
Yeah, this is
That's
great.
Leslie Nielsen interrogating Walter Pidgeon. What is the id?
Nice.
Maybe I better find out.
The big machine, 8,000 cubic miles of Klystron relays, enough power for a whole population of creative geniuses, operated by remote control. Morbius, operated by the electromagnetic impulses of individual Krell brains.
To what purpose?
In return, that ultimate machine would instantaneously project solid matter to any point on the planet, in any shape or color they might imagine, for any purpose, Morbius. Creation by mere thought.
Why haven't I seen this all along?
But like you, the Krell forgot one deadly danger. Their own subconscious hate and lust for destruction.
The beast. The mindless primitive. Even the Krell must have evolved from that beginning.
And so those mindless beasts of the subconscious had access to a machine that could never be shut down. The secret devil of every soul on the planet, all set free at once to loot and maim. And take revenge, Morbius, and kill.
My poor Krell. After 1,000,000 years of shining sanity, they could hardly have understood what power was destroying them. Yes, young man. All very convincing, but for one obvious fallacy. The last Krell died 2,000 centuries ago. But today, as we all know, there is still at large on this planet a living monster.
Your mind refuses to face a conclusion.
What do you mean?
Morbius. Morbius.
What?
Something is approaching from the southwest. It is now quite close.
Could Robbie be wrong?
No, never.
There it comes.
All right. So that was the scene in Forbidden Planet. You saw Robbie the robot, I believe is his name, and you saw, well, you didn't really see it, but you saw the essence of the creature coming towards the people, what Joel was talking about. And Forbidden Planet, I just want to say, is a really cool movie to watch. They have a special edition out. You can, right now, locally here at Hastings, you can actually rent the special edition, and they also have just the regular renter's DVD version too, I think still at Hastings. And if you get the special edition, watch the extras. It's just amazing. And the film, if you just watch the film, like Netflix it or whatever, Blockbuster it, it's just an awesome, beautiful film to watch, and the sound design is amazing. So, but anyways, speaking about robots, space, let's get a little urban. Let's change the time here a little bit. We're going to talk about time movie, time traveling. And I'm going to be showing a clip or clips of Back to the Future 2. Now, this whole trilogy, I love the trilogy Back to the Future. It's my favorite movie since I was a little kid. I love it. I'll still pop it in and watch it. I bought the trilogy DVD when it first came out, special edition, watched all the extras. I'm totally a fan of Back to the Future. I love this show. I think it's a fun, it's a fun movie. It's like lighthearted and fun. But I have a special guest coming up next. His name is Emmett, the old elderly punk rocker. And he'll be coming up next after this trailer that I'm going to show. And we're going to debate whether Back to the Future, we're going to just talk about the movie in general, mainly the first movie that started it all, whether it is a good movie or a not so good movie. And we're going to have a little debate and discussion. And Greg, would you want to moderate for us?
I'll try to keep.
Just in case we get like crazy and we start dancing and stuff.
I've got a taser and some pepper spray. I think I
Oh,
can
good.
throw down.
We might have to throw in a few surreal jokes too. I don't know. So anyways, with that in mind, here I'm going to show you Back to the Future 2, the trailer of my favorite movie of the trilogy is Back to the Future 2, and here it is.
Do you remember the future?
You've got to come back with me. Where? Back to the future.
Are we back?
We're back.
What do you mean we're in the future?
October 21st, 2015.
Marty, we're going to be able to see our wedding.
Wow. The future. I gotta check this out, Doc.
Look what happened to your son.
He's a complete wimp.
Don't talk to anyone. You've been looking, Bob.
Hey, look!
Don't touch anything.
I need to borrow your hoverboard.
And try not to look at anything. I didn't invent the time machine to win at gambling.
I can't lose.
I invented the time machine to travel through time.
Hey, Doc, I'm all for that. What's wrong with making a few bucks on the side?
Now, the time continuum has been disrupted, creating an alternate 1985.
There have been a few changes.
It's like we're in hell or something.
No, it's Hill Valley, although I can't imagine hell being much worse.
But they'll all be back.
Eat less, slackers!
Biff?
Hello? Hello, anybody home?
Well, it can't be you. You're so big.
Michael J. Fox. Christopher Lloyd. Michael J. Fox.
More like a couple of teenagers, you know?
And Michael J. Fox.
Mom, is that you?
Steven Spielberg presents a Robert Zemeckis film, Back to the Future, Part 2. Coming November 22nd to theaters everywhere.
And there we have it. That's Back to the Future 2 for you. But we're going to be talking about Back to the Future in general, the movie. And I have my guest here, Emmett.
The old elderly punk rocker.
Right here, and we're going to debate about it. And he's brought a prop. It's a laser gun. Everybody watch
like I have
out.
on my show. And
Watch
my
out.
cup of coffee. Blast the alien globe.
Oh my goodness. It
Yep.
actually looks like, yeah, like planets or something like that.
Yes.
It's crazy. So, Greg, are you going to be our moderator?
I will
Are
indeed.
you up for this job?
I think so.
I think me and Emma are ready to go. We were talking about this previously, actually, and this is how we got the idea. I was talking in my office about Back to the Future. Or did I have it up or playing it? Or no, it was on my desktop.
Yeah, and
have a
I looked
desktop.
at it and we debated about
You're
this.
like,
and
I
we
didn't
just
like that
talked about-
movie.
Yeah.
Do you want to start? Do you want to start? Do you
Yes,
want, yeah, go
anyway,
ahead.
it was in 1985, I was 17, and basically, I was living still in Missoula on 4th Street, and, I knew some kids in the neighborhood, and a friend of mine who was about 10 or 11, and he said he really loved this movie, Back to the Future. It was in summer 1985. I was on a summer vacation, and back then a matinee was only $3 or $4. Can you imagine that? A matinee only $3 or $4. I had my allowance money. I thought he really liked it. My friend said, I really like this movie, Back to the Future. I just saw it. It's in theaters. You really got to go see it. It's a wonderful film. He said, it's really awesome. He loved it. You really, really need to go see Back to the Future.
So he was like really selling
Thrilled,
it. Yeah,
thrilled. I
he
thought,
was upselling.
well, I like him. He's a cool kid. He's a nice person. He's a good friend of mine. He's awesome. He's intelligent, witty. He's an excellent person. Good neighbor, I think I'll give it a whirl. I mean, I've got nothing else better to do. My chores are done. It's a Saturday afternoon. I've got $3 burning a hole in my pocket. I will go see it. It was on the matinee. It was the Village 6.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I walked over there, and I don't know how to explain it. It just wasn't interesting. I just couldn't relate to any of the characters. Now, I don't know. It's an old movie. Probably everyone knows the plot, but I don't want to spoil it in case anyone has never seen Back
Right,
to
we
the
don't
Future.
want to do that. Some people haven't seen it.
But basically, just a recap, it was about a flying car, time machine. DeLorean, and I don't remember all the characters' names, but this kid, played by Michael J. Fox.
Marty
wanted to correct some things in his past in high school for his father and mother. Basically, there was a little science fiction thing, a little, time machine car, Back to the Future. But basically, with science fiction, I'm a huge science fiction fan. Christian and
I know that.
I love the Terminator films.
Oh, yeah. We'll be talking about that. We'll have you on again, and maybe me and you will both the Terminator
But anyway,
films.
this movie, I couldn't relate. And I was in high school, but it was about people standing up to the bullies, getting a girlfriend, how you fight the bully, how you defend yourself, and how you have relationships in high school. Can you have relationships? Can you fit in with the social circles? I couldn't relate to any of that.
Really? So that's why you didn't like the film. See, I have to disagree. I related to it because I wanted to be Marty. I wanted to be the cool kid. I wanted to be the tough guy because he's kind of like the tough hero, but he has that one problem. Nobody should call him chicken. He doesn't like being called chicken, and that was his little flaw. And I thought that's cool because I have flaws. And
well, we all have flaws,
yeah.
but I couldn't relate to the fight. See, I don't want to give it away, but it was like one punch, and the fight was over. Now you want to go.
It was unbelievable, basically. You didn't.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Now there are other time travel. When now we're short on time.
Yeah.
But I loved Bill and Ted's Excellent
Oh my
Adventure.
goodness, we'll do that.
I loved that.
We're gonna do that.
And the Terminator, but I could relate to the characters.
Right.
I could relate to those characters completely. But I couldn't relate to anything about the Back to the Future movies.
Are
I'm
you
glad
saying
you
it's
love them.
cheesy? Is it?
It just
cheesy?
bored me.
Boring. Okay.
I
boring.
sat there, bored, uninterested. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say it's a 3. And I thought, this was a big waste of $3. And I didn't love it and I didn't hate it. I had no emotional relationship with the Michael J. Fox characters from the father or the son, and I didn't love them or hate them. It was like loving or hating the wall. Kind of like that's. I might as well
disagree.
We'll just have to agree to disagree.
Yes, we will have to agree to disagree because.
If I could interject in here.
Yes,
real
go
quickly,
ahead.
I'd like to
Our moderator.
I'd like to touch in on something I'm curious about. You mentioned being able to relate more to the characters in the Terminator and
The Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Ted's Excellent Adventure. So I'm curious, what was it that Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and the Terminator in terms of characterization succeeded at for you, as opposed to
Well, yeah, Bill and Ted as excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, they loved rock music. I didn't like rock music, but I was struggling in high school, and I can understand the pressure of getting a test on time and the strict parents, the strict dad.
They were social outcasts in a way,
They
too.
were social outcasts. They were trying to get the test, but they had to go back in time to study to get a good grade. I could relate to that, and they were fun. It's like, excellent.
Right.
They were close friends, and I've had close friends like
But
that.
like
buddy.
Marty and all those guys, they weren't. Yeah, and then in Terminator, why is that?
Well, that was because they were fighting to preserve mankind. They
There
were
you
fighting
go.
against the apocalypse, against
Right.
incredible odds. I can relate to that, taking the shotgun out of the Terminator, just fighting for your life. I can relate to that as fighting.
Right.
But these popular versus unpopular kids, how you fight, how you don't, that's...
It was just like, blah.
Yeah, I could not get into any of them.
I don't know, but I'm not saying I agree with you about Back to the Future being stupid, but I see where you're coming from, though.
Yeah,
I'm in a
definitely.
weird, like, I agree with you. From if I was in your shoes, I'd probably see Back to the Future the same way.
Exactly.
I see you put it so good. I've never looked at it that way, and now I want to watch Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Oh, it's
now.
fantastic.
I'm
I
getting
could
off on
relate
tangents.
to that, completely. Now, I've never seen Back to the Future 2 or 3.
But you won't because you didn't like the first one.
Yeah, maybe it'd be better. Maybe it was better than the others.
Let me just throw this in. This is why I like it. Okay, Back to the Future 1 is, like, if you, after seeing the second one, I'm going to say this, it's kind of like Star Wars Empire Strike Back, right? People out there, other Star Wars fans like me and Emmett, I don't know, Star Wars fan?
I love
don't know.
Star Wars, yeah.
I don't know.
Empire Strikes Back, the other two I'm kind of...
I love
See,
it.
okay. All right, so those out there, clerks, you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, that could be another debate. But you needed Back to the Future 1 to have Back to the Future 2 to succeed. I'm not talking technically, just technically too, but yeah. What happened is they were doing a time machine movie, so they were able to do something pretty amazing. They were able to go back in the sequel, go back into the other movie. So what happens is Marty goes back in time, back in 1955, like he does in the first film, and guess what? There's two Martys from 1985. There's the Marty who's doing the first movie stuff, and then there's the other Marty doing these other side plot stuff, and you see the first film from a different angle, and it's so interesting. It's kind of like the play or like the movie Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. They go behind of what's happening during Hamlet. They're the guys walking around. It's kind of reminding me of that. So you see, like, all of a sudden, here's Michael J. Fox, and he has to hide from the other Michael J. Fox who's doing the stuff from the first movie, and I thought that was just amazing. That's what blew my mind. Plus, the future scene was awesome. I wanted self-lacing Nikes, a self-sizing jacket, and I'm kind of a nostalgic guy. It shows the old backlot, and they turned it all into the future. Yeah, and all the movies we like are on there, and all the movies that were filmed. Like, not every film that we like, but most of the movies we like that were filmed on there, and filmed there, and in that place, in like Terminator 2 and all those, or Terminator movies, and so. In saying that, that's why I like it, because it has that cool, interesting, like, dynamic.
Yeah, that's interesting. But even, I know we're pressed for time,
Yeah,
so
maybe we'll wrap
but
it up.
even, like the dialogue in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, I've had a dialogue with friends of mine just to do one piece of dialogue it won't ruin the plot, but, they were trying to do guitar, and the whole speaker went, oh, dude, the whole speaker's blue. Now, our band Wild Stallions is excellent, will be most triumphant, but we will never have a super band until we get Eddie Van Halen with a guitar. And then Ted said, but how can we get Eddie Van Halen if we don't have an excellent music video? A triumphant video. Well, how can we have a triumphant video when we don't even have a decent instruments? Well, how can we have even decent instruments if we don't know how to play? And that's why we need Eddie Van Halen as guitar, and that's why we need a triumphant video.
There we go.
Excellent. Now I can relate to that as far as friendship. That you just endured to that,
That's
and then they were
totally
flunking,
true.
and they had to get good grades because of the strict dad. And
Right.
Who's gonna? I mean, it was fun, and it was funny, and it was in California,
Yes.
and it was hysterical, and I just laughed, and it had a happy ending, and I
Yeah.
just loved it. But I couldn't relate to the other stuff, the high school relationships and
See,
the
I
other
could
movies.
totally. So that's where we're going to have to agree
To disagree, definitely.
And, well, and Emmett, thank you. That was so fun doing that debate. I'm going to have you come back on. We'll have to do Terminator, and we'll have to do Bill and Ted's.
Oh, definitely.
Would you do it?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, you heard
Lord
him
willing,
say it
yes.
right now. He's going to be on. You heard Greg.
Yeah,
you'll be
Lord
on.
willing. Unless
All right,
I'm
and maybe we'll do a Star Wars special.
Oh,
too.
please,
We'll
yeah.
do that. And maybe I'll show a little bit of the holiday special.
Oh, I would love that.
Okay. And thanks, Emmett, for coming.
Certainly.
But I'm going to end with a Back to the Future 2 clip. But before we go, is there any last closing comments? Because we had to kind of change what we're doing because we ran out of time. The show went, I think, really well. Did you think so?
Indeed.
All right. And so do you have anything to tell our viewers out there?
I do indeed. So this is kind of my goodbye monologue, and I'll grab a prop.
Oh, nice.
so
Yeah,
that
just
it,
right there.
It officially is the goodbye monologue. The real reason that I wanted to do this show is I have made contact over the past year or so with local filmmakers who are interested in science fiction, fantasy, or horror, and they've made videos. And this is my chance to officially invite them to show their programming on MCAT on the show. Christian's on Facebook, I'm on Facebook, and my organization, which is kind of devoted to this sort of thing, called the Speculative Movement. We're kind of a grassroots nonprofit, literally nonprofit. The project we're working on has absolutely no budget whatsoever, kind of like what Christian does. Our project's called Tracers. It's about telepathy, and we'll get into that more at a later time. But the thing is, I figured if we can make a no-budget project and put it on an up-and-coming network called Syzygy, which is also relatively low budget, at $787 million for the entire network as far as their operating budget. They're also on Facebook. They have their own website. You can Google all of this, but the ultimate point is we're just looking for people to contact us on Facebook or the Spec Move, THESPECMOVE@gmail.com, and just let us know, hey, we've got this film and it's in this genre, and we'd like you to show it on MCAT. And we understand that MCAT's really the only thing in town for this, and that might not be for everyone, but we're hoping that people give us a chance, build up the quality of MCAT, and see where we end up in a year or so. So ultimately, that's the goal, is to reach out to people who are into science fiction, fantasy, or horror, or generally speaking, speculative filmmaking, and say, look, we've got a show and we need material. Send us some stuff in, and we'll try to get it on air. And I will end by doing the one thing that means the most to any filmmaker. End scene, cut.
Well, thanks, Greg. And thank you for watching out there in TV land. And we're going to end with Back to the Future 2. So here it is.
The future.
Welcome to Texaco. You can trust your car to the system with the star. Check the oil. Check the landing gear.
Shark still looks fake.